Hey everyone, it's Student Nurse K, or Carmen. You can call me either of those. And I am back with my second video. So at this point, I am entering my fourth or fifth week in nursing school. I'm really not sure because it's a lot, you guys. It's so much that goes into it. So the weeks are starting to blur together, and at this point, I'm just trying to keep up. But I did want to come with this video for 5 things you should know before starting nursing school, even before applying to nursing school. So let's get right into it. The first thing, and I have a list here. The first thing that I wish that I knew before starting nursing school, and this is number one because it's such a big deal to me, is that you will have to teach yourself. What I mean by that is, at least at my school, let me speak only for my school, when you go to lecture, it is just PowerPoints and somewhat of a discussion with your instructor, but at least for the most part on our end, we just go over PowerPoints for that week's material. And then the following week, literally one solid week, we have a test over the material. So if you are expecting true teaching of the material, which is what I was expecting, you may be disappointed. So just be mindful that you will have to teach yourself. This means that you will also need to know your learning style, and you need to figure out the best way for you to retain the information. Quite honestly, I have no tips to provide on how to retain information. Once I'm able to get through this semester, if I'm able to get through it, I'll be happy to share things that have helped me be successful. I can say one thing that I feel has contributed to my success thus far is doing practice quizzes. We have had 2 pharmacology exams and 2 fundamentals exams, and I've passed both of those, thankfully. And quite honestly, I can't tell you how I did it. I just know that I did a lot of practice quizzes trying to understand the why behind why an answer was correct, so the rationales. And I feel that that's been helpful, but I really can't say for sure if that is the best course of action or not. So number 2, if you are going into an LPN program, and I'm sure this could be true with the other programs, such as the associate's degree program or the bachelor's degree program, but speaking solely on LPN because that is what I'm doing, it is an accelerated program. And I knew this, but I didn't know it, if that makes sense. So I'll explain how I knew it. When I say I knew it, I knew, oh, 1 year, it's accelerated. It's 3 semesters. That's going to be quick. What I also knew is that in my first video, I mentioned this, pharmacology and fundamentals were in a 7.5 week time frame. And then after this, we're going to get into med surg, and that's also 7.5 weeks. So I was aware that these classes would be in the mini semesters. What was the shock for me was that pharmacology, especially fundamentals, I believe is something that is doable, but pharmacology is extremely difficult. And so it being in a 7.5 week time frame where we have one test every single week until the end of the semester, and in the last week we actually have 2 tests. We have the final exam, and then there's an exam before the final exam for pharmacology. So what I didn't realize was accelerated was pharmacology, and I didn't realize the intensity of it either. I had no knowledge of pharmacology. I've never heard of it before this program. So that was a bit of a culture shock for me. So Here is the tip. Remember, or you need to know that it is accelerated. Think about that before you make this decision to go to nursing school. If you do not do well with accelerated programs, this will be difficult for you. Is it doable? Absolutely. But it is very, very difficult. And also, when it comes to pharmacology, you have to figure out the best way for you to retain the information. Again, I cannot provide any tips just yet. When I make it through pharmacology, I will be happy to share what I have learned and what has been best for me. Number 3, and this is somewhat related to the last one, but pharmacology, because of the difficulty, I recommend that you start learning as much as you possibly can about pharmacology, about the drugs as you can. So if you are able to log into your school's Blackboard and read over the week 1 or 2 information along with your textbook, I would go ahead and do that. If you have to do drug cards, I would go ahead and start that now. So if your program starts in 1 month, you need to be working on your drug cards right now so that you can retain that information and also start learning. And I would also recommend looking for alternative ways to remember the information at this point. So there are a lot of really great YouTube videos out there to assist with you remembering pharmacology, what the drugs do in the body and why they would be used, what situations they would be used in. And also, you would need to know the adverse reactions and the side effects, because many of the questions that are asked in ATI are asking why the patient is reacting a certain way to a certain medication. So if at all possible, start learning the drugs now. And if your instructors are willing to provide a list of the drugs that you will be using for your drug cards, then that would be beneficial for you to receive as soon as possible. Number 4, and this is one that might be, it may depend person to person, but this one is my personal opinion. Nothing that we ever studied is on the test. And I'm laughing, it's not funny. Because when you are taking the test, and I have test anxiety. So if you have test anxiety like me, then you know it comes with a stomach ache and shaking and the jitters, and you're nervous, and you might even have a little nervous sweat. And you're going through the test and you're like, I didn't study this. We didn't go over this. I have experienced that in all of my test situations. So what I have to say, and this is kind of a tip for this, most of our tests, no, not most, all of our tests are taken in ATI. With that being said, it seems beneficial based on what I've seen and also what my fellow students have said to focus mainly on studying the content that ATI provides. ATI is its own beast. Your textbooks that you may have been required to purchase, we, at least for my school, we are barely touching the textbooks that were required to buy. I would not say my textbooks have helped me pass my tests in ATI. I mostly feel like it was focusing more on the instruction from ATI than using the practice quizzes that the textbooks websites provide as supplemental to kind of reinforce what ATI has taught, and then instructors' PowerPoints. But definitely your top resource is going to be ATI, because those tests are generated by ATI. So of course they would be using the ATI content that they have already provided to you. And those tests are pretty difficult, but the homework questions that you get when you have to do the homework after you've completed a lesson, those are the most similar to what your test questions or your exam questions will look like. And number 5 is the level of liability. So this is something that may seem obvious. You know, you're going for a nursing program. You know that this is life-saving work that nurses do. And some of the decisions that you make as a nurse to give a medication or not give a medication, your license is always at stake. So what I wish I knew is the level of liability. And what I mean by that is I didn't completely understand that in any situation that I'm in, whether it be making a medication error, mishearing doctor's orders, not reading an order correctly, whatever my actions are surrounding that could cause an adverse reaction to the patient, my license, my nursing license is now at stake. And because of that liability, I've come to the conclusion that nurses are not being paid enough for the level of liability that they incur. We are humans. We will make errors. And really, there is no true dollar amount that could compensate you for the liability that you put yourself in when you decide to be a nurse. So I think it's important that before you really decide you want to be a nurse, before you apply, even before you start, working on those prereqs, think about the responsibility that you will have. You will be responsible for people's lives. And if something goes wrong, there's always the possibility that you will be held accountable for what went wrong with them. You will be held responsible financially, so it could affect your personal finances. You could lose your license, and as we have seen with several nurses recently in the news, you could end up in jail over a mistake. So those are the tips to remember before going to nursing school. I'll recap them. Number 1 was that you will have to teach yourself. Number 2, understand what it means to be in an accelerated program and the difficulty level that comes with it. Number 3, start working on pharmacology and drugs as soon as possible. Number 4, be mindful that what you studied you may not see on the test, so use your resources carefully, and if you are using ATI, make that your primary resource for studying. And number 5, the level of liability and your license is always at stake, so be very careful with your decisions and think twice before you decide to become a nurse and truly understand what is entailed. That is all I have for you guys today. This is actually going to be part 1 of things I wish I knew before starting nursing school. I will be doing a part 2 and any additional parts as necessary, but those are 5 things I felt were very important to let you all know before starting. And once I get through this semester, I shall have even more tips to share. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave me comments letting me know what else you would like to see. And I hope that everyone has a great time in nursing school. Please remember to be studying and also be balanced and do your absolute best. Do not get so overwhelmed that you do nothing. Do the best that you can do and put your best effort forward so that you can be a successful nurse. At the end of the day, all that we want to be is successful and safe nurses. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Bye guys.